Due to recent events, there are probably a lot of people out there looking for someone to snuggle up with during quarantine. Dating apps provide a quick solution to match with someone and begin forming a relationship. Sometimes you may even be communicating with someone who runs $1 million operation. As you'll find out in this video, some of these scammers are receiving millions of dollars from vulnerable online daters. Reported just a couple weeks ago, a married couple in New Jersey are facing charges in an alleged online dating scam that federal prosecutors say swindled at least 33 people out of more than $6 million. NBC News reported that the husband and wife, who have 2 young children and live in Maple Shade, ran the scheme from October 16 to May 2020 and involved several conspirators who lived in Nigeria and Turkey and defrauded victims from around the US. This video was originally just going to cover this single story, but as I began researching, I came across story after story of people losing 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, all the way up to $1.5 million. So I'll provide a couple interesting stories first, and then I'll give you my perspective on the psychological tricks and the strategies these scammers use to manipulate people to send them money. I want to credit the YouTube channel Ukraine.com for producing this video. This gentleman articulates his points well, is well spoken, dresses well, and comes across as an intelligent man. But let's see how much money he spent looking for love.
I went through my bank statements and of all 3 credit cards I have. So the total amount spent was $317,000.
Ooh, ouch. What is incredible about this scam is that a real woman is actually behind this scam. He received a message from a beautiful Russian Instagram model and they magically hit it off. She was being paid by the agency running the dating app to be complicit in the scam. The victims of this scam could pay credits to send material items to her, send her specific emojis, and to have her send video messages or photos.
Then you have where I spent most of the money. About 75% of the money was spent on stickers and photos. So, they have these little emojis. They call them stickers. They're basically just emojis that you can purchase on the site.
The agency would give her a cut of all of the transactions, which incentivized her to send targeted messages to the victims. The victims would receive videos of this beautiful model wishing them to have a nice day while shouting out their names, so of course she's legit.
Hello, honey Anthony. I'm waiting for your meeting. Hi, Anthony. I miss you so much.
But they never met, of course, and it took this guy spending $300,000 on bonus purchases to realize it. I would think that men would be the easiest to target for online dating scams, but I found a majority of the victims during my research were women. This woman says she lost over $1 million from an online dating scam. You all think buying an online course for $997 is expensive. How about a course in finding out you've been scammed? That is brutal.
At this point, your heart rules your head. And I was doing what my heart wanted me to do.
And you're probably thinking that there's no way that this could happen to a young and attractive lady. Well, this poor young woman met a con man on Tinder and sent him $200,000 in total. I began this video by showing a variety of people to help exemplify that we are all capable of getting conned into losing a lot of money. One of the reasons why I focus so much on psychology, manipulation, and persuasion with gurus is because of how it protects you in other areas of life. I know a lot of you are upset that these fake gurus can run rampant on YouTube and Facebook, but understand that these fake gurus are such small potatoes to the actual scams going on around the world that we simply don't have enough regulatory bodies and resources to handle all of these scams. This guy, labeled Casanova Conman, went from woman to woman, seducing each into basically paying for his lifestyle. He claimed he worked on Wall Street for Goldman Sachs, which speculatively paid for his fancy lifestyle with flashy cars and exorbitant taste. But really, it was the women he conned that were paying for his lifestyle. Once the woman he was dating started getting suspicious, he moved on to the next, but he was eventually arrested. Here's a breakdown of the strategies these scammers implement to make millions of dollars. The scammers will most often use pictures of military personnel for their profile as it gives them the easiest story to run the scam. Professions such as global investor or oil rig engineer also allow for the scam to be played out because it makes logical sense for the scammer to always be in different countries and not available to meet in person. I personally think soldiers are used as the fake pictures most often because of the inherent trust many of us have in military personnel.
Colonel Denny's face was used to create more than 3,000 fake profiles. Denny's pictures are the only constant.
The scammers find someone who is in a vulnerable state. Additionally, I have found that the scammer is using pictures of someone who is more attractive or has a significantly higher status in life than the victim. We are all vulnerable to online dating scams if we perceive our potential match as being significantly more attractive in our blueprint of attraction than our other options. The scammers prey on the victim's emotions with manipulative use of showing affection and care, and a lot of cases showing you that just listening is all that's needed, as most of these people are in emotional pain, they're lonely, or even isolated from a recent divorce or death.
I was a lonely person then, and I was looking for a new life.
The scammers began using future projections to deepen that emotional bond the victim has for them. Future projection is where you tell stories or create events involving you and someone else in the future. I can see us traveling to Spain together, or I would love to have our wedding at the beach, are a couple examples. It's extremely easy to manipulate a victim on dating apps when you've reached this stage and the victim has not left the chat. This is where the scammers begin the claims of wanting to be with you forever. I'm starting to really enjoy the idea of having you and your kids surround me every single day of my life, or go to the store and pick out your dress, baby, and send me pictures. It's easy for the victim to get caught in a trance of emotions.
And they actually went to her place of business and they took her away and took her for assessment.
Colleen was released. She could not be convinced that Ryan wasn't real. The RCMP were called a third time when Colleen suddenly sold her house.
One really powerful manipulation technique the scammers use is that they persuade the victim into detaching from their support system. Don't believe your friends, I am real. Our love is real. I'm all you need in this crazy life. I will support you forever. Your friends are just trying to separate us because they're jealous you found someone you love. After a few months of talking and forming a relationship, there are promises of being able to meet in person, but their job consistently sends them to different locations and cancels the meet, unfortunately. Once the victim has emotionally bought into the scam, then the scammers can begin what I call the compliance ladder of sending money. They typically begin asking for a small amount of money to gauge your compliance. If you say yes, then you are someone who is comfortable sending money to a stranger. You are the mark. The reasons for sending money generally have to do with a small issue that the scammer is having. A simple example is these scammers claiming they have business income about to hit their bank account, but because it hasn't hit yet, then they just need some quick cash to pay for a small business expense, or their bank account is having some issues, so I just need some money right now. It's important to the scammers that they don't trigger any red flags in the victim, and that's why they keep it small initially. Since so many of these scammers use military personnel's pictures, the first expense may be them covering a small fee for the scammer to leave the military to come and visit.
One of the most common is the leave scam, where they'll tell the woman that, hey, I want to come visit you, or I want to come marry you even. And the only way I can do it is to go on leave, and the Army makes me pay a fee of $400 or $1,000 or $5,000, and I don't have the money, I don't have access to my bank account, can you pay that fee for me?
Over the following months, the amount the scammers need escalates. The reason why the victims become compliant is because each additional ask is just a little bit more than the last. Remember, scammers prey on your emotions. When you're in a deeply affectionate emotional state, all logic in your brain is turned off. This is essentially the compliance ladder. This is an important principle that everyone needs to understand. I define it as needing to get a yes at each new rung of the ladder in order to advance. These scammers begin with a small amount to get the initial yes, and then they slowly ask for more. In the dating world, if a guy wants to sleep with a girl, he needs to focus on first getting her on a date, then hugging, then holding hands, then kissing, and so on. You can't advance to the next step until you get full compliance where you're at. The internet marketing gurus use the compliance ladder as well. They begin by getting you to say yes to a free ebook or paying for shipping for a free ebook. They then try to get you to say yes to a monthly Facebook group that's just a little bit more, then a software product that's a little bit more, then an inner circle, and before you know it, you just spent 25 grand to get mentored by a guru. Basically, I just explained ClickFunnels to you. As the amount of money sent to the scammer gets larger, the scammers will begin providing legitimate looking documents from their bank account showing that they will have the money, or they have the money but they can't spend it because there's a temporary issue with the bank. In some cases, the documents are completely forged to ease concerns of the victim. It appears that the money is there because it shows on some PDF document with Bank of Nigeria written at the top. The scammer is always adamant that the money will be paid back shortly. The profile of the scammer scammer is generally that of a high income or high net worth person, so of course the scammer has the money to pay back the victim. The amounts just keep increasing over time. At this point, the victim is so stuck in the scam that they aren't fully aware of what's going on. The scammer essentially goes until the victim finds out what is happening and calls it quits.
Initially, it was only very small amounts. Just the original bank vault fees were, I think, $700, $800. And then it progressively got higher and higher and higher, and then it got to $10,000, $20,000, $25,000, till it reached close to $80,000.
In many of these scams, the scammer will claim to have access to a large amount of money located in a box somewhere and was left to the scammer by a recently deceased family member. They use the compliance ladder really well in this scenario because they begin asking for money for small fees to have access to this money. The big payday comes when they say they need a percentage of the total amount in the box in order to ship the box to the victim's country. The victim will easily comply at this point because they're spending 50 grand and they have $2 million being sent to them in a mysterious box and will get paid back instantly upon its arrival. I'm sure you're wondering how the victims can't tell that these scammers aren't who they say they are. In many cases, there is always an issue with the video camera when the scammer and victim try to connect over video chat. Remember what I said earlier about the professions of these scammers. Their professions typically involve being away for many months at a time, or they need to always be on the road meeting with different offices in different countries. And so it makes enough logical sense that they can't meet or speak on video chat to keep the victim suppressing their logical mind. These global scams are very sophisticated and the entire story is already fabricated so that everything can fall into place as the victim gets sent through the funnel to empty bank accounts. You can essentially view it as a flowchart as the people get funneled down into losing all their money. And sadly, you'll always hear the phrase,
I just can't believe that she fell for this.
I did not expect myself to fall for something like this. I've seen these things on documentaries and stuff. I said, look at that. That poor soul. Who would be silly enough to fall for that?
I'm going to leave the resources I used in the description box below for those of you interested in going down the rabbit hole of seeing how these scams operate. One of the more interesting discoveries is a global organization is essentially running all of these scams. These scams are so elaborate that I was legitimately impressed by how much they're stealing and how they're able to operate a global system for defrauding victims without going to jail. Sadly, this will continue as long as these con men and scammers pull millions away from victims and get away with it. Thanks so much for watching.